Look, we've got to offer you congratulations on a by-election win in Oldham, Western Royton, which is, well, you've got to be honest, is significantly better than you must have been hoping for.
That's very generous of you to say, and I will be honest, it is significantly better than I was expecting, because we kept reading in the papers that we might lose it. And I read Nigel Farage saying this would be a referendum on Jeremy Corbyn, and we ended up with a swing from UKIP to Labour. So, yes, we're very, very pleased with the result.
What about those people who say, you won there because of Jeremy Corbyn or despite him? Which way did it fall? I mean, obviously, he didn't really visit there apart from that launch with you.
I think there were a number of issues about why we won. Firstly, we had a very, very good candidate in Jim McMahon. He was a working-class guy who worked hard, took himself back to college and ended up leading the council with respect by many people. But you have to give it to Jeremy Corbyn too. He has realigned the Labour Party. We fought on the issue of tax credits in this campaign. There were 16,000 families in Oldham who were going to lose out if George Osborne's cuts had been made, and Jeremy's national leadership meant that Osborne committed the U-turn, and I think we were rewarded electorally for that as well.
It's difficult to talk about Mr Corbyn's leadership in a sense, though, isn't it, after what we saw on Wednesday, that you can't deny that it has been a very difficult and indeed a very damaging week for Labour.
It's not difficult for me to talk about this at all. You know, MPs had a very solemn decision to make this week on Syria, and I'm very grateful that Jeremy allowed a free vote so that we could express our solemnly held views. And I agreed very strongly with John McDonnell, who said that perhaps David Cameron should have done that to his MP so they could express their view as well. In the end, I took a different view to Jeremy. I was convinced by Hilary Benn's arguments. I think ISIS-Daesh run a theocratic state on medieval grounds with territorial ambitions and terrorist intent, and under those circumstances I think a limited extension to airstrikes from the coalition in Iraq to Syria was the right thing to do. But I was deeply grateful for Jeremy for holding the party together and allowing a free vote.
Have you been getting abuse on Twitter or elsewhere because of your position? I mean, certainly we've been talking, as you'll be aware, about one of your MPs, Neil Coyle, who's had this apparent death threat and is now getting police protection today as he holds his surgery. Have you received threats or abuse?
Well, I receive abuse on Twitter quite a lot, on a lot of issues. But I've not received threats, and I'm very concerned about specifically some of the threats to our members of Parliament. The one for Neil Coyle is very, very sinister. And I'm also concerned about Paul Stella Creasy, who's had some terrible comments and threats on Twitter, and I saw that demonstration outside her office. It must have been quite frightening for her staff to put up with that. And if there were Labour Party members involved in that, I think we need to deal with it.
Well, it is likely that there are people who, and I mean, to quote some sources today, people who say they're operating in the leadership's name, however loosely. Now, you've denied it, obviously, with your position on the vote. Jeremy Corbyn has denied it and himself made some pretty strong statements about this, understandably so. But there are still those people who must be connected in some way, shape or form, somewhere near the top of the Labour Party.
Well, where's your evidence for that?
Well, but this is admittedly no evidence. This is coming anecdotally from members of Parliament.
Yeah. Well, we need to see the evidence for that, if that's the case. Look, all I can say to you is that Jeremy and I have written to all our members to say we expect them to conduct themselves in a respectful way when it comes to dealing with political difference. There is an issue with threats and intimidation that are more sinister, that I think are security issues and require the police to investigate. But Jeremy has consistently said that he expects a respectful debate in the party, and I believe him on that, and I hope that we can deal with these sort of political fringe groups that are trying to whip this up in his name. I just don't think that he wants anything to do with it.
This presumably hasn't been helped by the comments from Ken Livingstone, has it? Saying he would want people like you to be deselected.
Well, I think Ken, if he'd had his way, would probably have had me deselected many years ago on other issues. And he's certainly entitled to his views on that. He's been pretty consistent in his political position over the years. I'm not sure if his position as sort of an elderly statesman of the Labour Party has been enhanced this week, and I don't think he's really helped bring the party back together, which is what members of our National Executive Committee should be doing this week after a very difficult week for us.
Yeah, how do you bring the party back together? Because I've had contact with a number of Labour MPs over the last 2 weeks. One senior figure telling me things were going to get worse before they get better. Another pretty senior member of the Labour Party, MP, yesterday saying our party is an utter disgrace at the moment. There is a lot of concern on those backbenches. How do you address it? How do you bring the party back together?
I do understand the concern of our backbenchers, and, you know, they've had a very tough week. They've had some, you know, very solemn, deep decisions to make on the Syria vote in particular. You know, a free vote actually means, you have to really think about these issues. And what I hope we can do is focus on domestic issues. You know, up in Oldham, the issue on the doorstep was tax credits, and how we support the working people of Britain should unite the Labour Party, and I hope that refocusing on domestic issues in the weeks to come will help us with that.
Well, certainly there will be a sense of pleasure or joy at what's happened in Oldham West and Royton through the night. The one downside on that in terms of a level for concern is what Nigel Farage has said. I mean, he's blamed postal votes for a lot of this, saying the postal vote system in that constituency has been bent. How do you respond to that?
Well, firstly, if Nigel Farage has evidence of criminal activity, he should report it to the police. It's a very serious allegation. But just arithmetically, even if every single postal vote was bent, to use his word, then Labour would still have won this by-election, so it wouldn't have affected the outcome. But I rather suspect sour grapes from Nigel Farage on this. He did think that UKIP would win this. He did declare that this would be a referendum on Jeremy Corbyn, and Jeremy Corbyn has passed that referendum. He ran a very negative campaign that was deeply personalised and failed to address the issues, and, you can see the result.
Tom Watson, appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.